So, welcome to the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Sciences, IVA for short, and this seminar on Nordic circular cooperation and best practice. So first a little about IVA. Since 1919, the Academy has been a meeting place for Sweden's future. IVA brings together the expertise and experience of more than 1,200 elected members and 250 companies. IVA builds bridges between academia, industry, business, public sector, and politics. And the mission of the Academy is to promote the engineering and economic sciences and the development of industry for the benefit of society. Today, we're focusing on a project at the Academy called Resource Efficiency and Circular Economy, its outcomes and how these may be connected to other Nordic initiatives. We look forward to getting an overview of what's going on in the area in the Nordic region, explore areas of Nordic cooperation, and the sharing of best practice. We know that in order to achieve the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, innovation, behavior change, change of whole systems, and collaboration are required. In short, hard work. The change we need to achieve is something that individual actors, or countries for that matter, can handle on their own. We all need to work together and collaborate if we are to succeed. Right now, in these times, there's a unique opportunity to shape and influence the future and invest in change. The Swedish government is working on a strategy for the circular economy, has appointed a delegation on circular economy, of which I'm a member of, and has commissioned Vinnova, the Swedish Energy Agency, and Formas to invest in strategic innovation areas through Resource, a strategic innovation program that focuses on developing circular, resource-efficient material flows. And of course, there are a huge amount of other initiatives. Janne Nordling, my colleague, and I, Caroline Anka-Krona, have had the pleasure of leading the Resource Efficiency and Circular Economy project since the beginning of 2018. In the project, we see a use of resources within the planetary boundaries as the overarching goal. It's important that there is clarity and systems perspective and understanding in the development ahead to manage target conflicts. The project assumes that resource efficiency is paramount circulation of material, although both mostly strive for the same goal. The vision for the project is that Sweden will become the leading nation for a resource-effective circular society, and hopefully this contributes to the same vision for the Nordic region. The aim of the project has been to create a platform for resource efficiency and circular economy in Sweden, and to clarify what choices Sweden faces in order to accelerate development in the right direction through collaboration and action. The scope of the project has been the sectors of society in which Swedish households spend about 90% of their disposable income after tax, namely bilen, biffen, bostaden, börsen och butiken, which is the car, the steak or food, housing, finance, and the store. 2014 to 16, IVA ran the project Resource Efficient Business Models, Greater Competitiveness, where we looked at what resource challenges we'll have when there'll be 9 billion people on Earth by 2050, with a large middle class who wants to have the same standard of living as we do. We also mapped a number of material flows and found that the leaks on one hand and the business opportunities on the other hand were large. And we developed overall policy needs regarding incentives and market development. So based on our analysis and conclusions from that project, we've focused on where we saw the greatest potential for resource efficiency, implementation, and financial gain. These areas became 5 sub-projects in which we've produced recommendations and action plans. And these are resource-efficient mobility for goods and people, a resource-efficient circular textile flow, measurement and reduction of food waste, increased sharing of premises, and the role of plastics in a resource-efficient circular society. All the reports are available in both Swedish and English on IVA's website. And the project also had a financial and a political reference group that contributed to the results. We've had a broad participation of actors from both the business community, public sector, and the academy. And these are our financiers who have made the project possible. Thank you very much. And the focus has been to move from word to action by creating action plans that answer what to do, who should have the mandate and responsibility, and when should it start and end. There are also a number of overall changes necessary to succeed in the societal transformation we need, pointed out in the synthesis report, which is the 6th report from the project, such as seeing society from a systems perspective. It's not enough to review and analyze one challenge at a time, such as climate on one hand and resource issues on another, because society is a system of systems that are interconnected. Develop a circular strategy that involves all sections of society. Politics plays a central role in setting the framework. Expand the Ministry of Enterprise and Innovation's task with responsibility for society's overall resource use, including a mandate to focus on systems perspective. Use public procurement as a tool for resource-efficient circular economy. Through, among other things, functional procurement, there are opportunities to drive resource-efficient innovation. And create common markets for resources. There's great potential in collaborations and synergies between different sectors and industries to create efficient resource flows, where we also need brokers to match supply and demand. And support companies in the transition. To drive change and quickly change on their own is a major challenge, especially for small businesses. And now moving over to the recommendations from the sub-projects. 2 important key metrics to achieve a resource-efficient transport sector are fill rate, which is how much of the available load volume or maximum weight is used. And today we know that the fill rate is around 60% for all transport types, road, rail, air, and sea. A utilization rate, which is measured based on how much of the available time the vehicle is used. A European passenger car has about 5% utilization rate. So huge business opportunities here. The sub-project has developed a number of recommendations aimed at politicians, companies, industry organizations, and consumers. When it comes to textiles, it's vital to ensure sustainable material flows. A clear definition and an international standard for sustainable textiles and circularity will be required. Material brokers are needed to support the exchange of materials between different industries and sectors. And more sustainable and circular business models, such as the reuse, rent, and this dress that I'm wearing, I rented from Sabina and Friends here in Stockholm, and subscription to clothing and textiles could get tax relief to get the transition started. But to succeed, change is required on many levels, not least among consumers. And we need to change both our approach and our habits, which requires both incentives, alternatives, and pressure. The project proposes several recommendations. The utilization rate for offices is around 10%. Therefore, the big question for the sub-project for premises is how we can stimulate a sharing economy. To achieve this, we need to form, among other things, VAT rules that allow for sharing, but also to review the Rent Act and the Planning and Building Act. It must be much easier to share, and we need regulations that support sharing. The reduction of food waste is something that many actors along the food chain are already working on, from primary production to consumer. Therefore, the sub-project focused on the foundation for even setting goals to reduce food waste, namely to find how extensive food waste really is. To succeed in this, all actors in the food chain, from primary producers to consumers, need to measure, and we have to make sure everyone measure in the same way. The recycling of plastic requires political decisions. We need a developed market for recycled plastics with collection, sorting, and recycling, but also systems knowledge and statistics. A strategic decision on the opportunities for chemical recycling of plastics, as well as policy on how to handle plastics in our society. The financial sector plays an important role in the transition to a resource-efficient circular society. We've identified challenges and potential obstacles for the sector's opportunities to finance the transition. A central role for the financial market is to provide companies with venture capital for investments in new technology, new services, and new business models, but also setting credit requirements for sustainability, resource efficiency, and circularity. We know we need to change, and we know we're in a hurry. The time is running, and 2030, which is a crucial year, is only 10 years away. To succeed in creating the change society needs, we'll need visions around what a future society might look like, a credible picture of what we're striving for. Therefore, to inspire and to point out the direction to move ahead in, we included an outlook towards the year 2030 in the synthesis report. It's written as if the proposals have already been implemented in 10 years. We hope that the outlook may provide a map leading us on to a more resource-effective path, start conversations, generate ideas, and instill hope for the future. But the big question today is how we can achieve more together. So we're looking forward to learning more about what's going on in the Nordic region. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this, Caroline, this wonderful introduction both to the Royal Swedish IVA and also to the synthesis report that we're presenting today. And I know that you feel that this is not the end point, but rather the start of something that's bound to happen. I want to also especially thank IVA for reaching out towards resource efficiency and the circular economy. Because over time we've often been sort of equating them both without realizing that there's sometimes conflicts of interest. And this is actually the first report where I really see that they are put together and where we see how we optimize the co-benefits. I know you're wearing here now a dress that you rented, just showing how we can get into practice and how we can start delivering on what you put in your report. But when you look at the process that you've been through now, this is a sort of an endpoint. What are your main conclusions? What surprised you the most?
Maybe not surprised, but I think there are so many actors who really want to make this happen. That there's so much support from all the participators in the project, and both businesses and industry and from public authorities and so on. So I think that's a great place to be right now.
Very impressive, because you mentioned some of the main sponsors that we really thank for this, but I also know that there's more than 50 companies, organizations, state authorities included, involved, which in itself is sort of a guarantee, right, that this is going to continue.
We hope so.
Thank you so much for the time being.
Thank
we hope to see you back here at the wrap-up session in roughly an hour.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me. These are trying and difficult times, but these are also times of great opportunities to start thinking about what will happen when we relaunch the economy. How can we not again do what mistakes we did previously, but become much more resource efficient and circular? And I think the EVA report today is really going to show us a lot of inspiration for that. We're going to go through Nordic examples from some of our wonderful neighboring countries with also an all Nordic perspective. We're going to have the perspective of finance, and then we're going to have all the presenters coming back to us for a joint discussion. But these are not just going to be my questions and comments. We invite you all to visit menti.com with the code 441269 44 12 69, and in the language of your preference, put the questions that you want the speakers to answer, either right now or during the conference or for the final wrap-up session. They're going to show up right here on my computer. I'm going to make sure that they're answered. And please state who you are and, if possible, for whom the question is. We also would love for you to share your experiences on the social media of your choice with the hashtag, if you're Swedish, cirkulär ekonomi. And if you're not Swedish, I guess that by now you understand that circular economy, which will be your hashtag in English, is called exactly that, circular economy in Swedish. And then use EVA 1919, which also tells us something wonderful. It tells us that this is the first year of the 2nd century for EVA. That's a wonderful tradition to lean back on, but it's also a great opportunity to leap forward and help us find the resource efficient and circular solution for tomorrow's economy in the Nordics, which is today's main theme. My name is Matthias Goldman. I am the Chief Sustainability Officer at Sweco, and I've been blessed with being able to follow this project throughout the years. I'm excited about this synthesis report, and I'm even more excited about what's going to happen next once we start building on the experiences that have been compiled in these reports.
Perfect. So thank you very much for your invitation. My name is Markus Bjerre and Special Advisor in the Danish Business Authority. We are part of the Ministry of Industrial Affairs, Business and Financial Affairs, and we have focus on creating the best framework conditions for companies to do their business. And climate and the green transition is of high priority in the ministry. In my office, we have a special focus on circular economy. There are, of course, more and more successful companies in Denmark working on circular economy. Here are a few examples. Subscription schemes to Tolders clothing, car sharing, repair of computers, and even Nordiskt just released a circular strategy, Circular for Zero.
Markus?
Yeah.
Could you close? You have a tiny window at the bottom.
Oh,
right?
yeah, of course.
Close that. That would be even better. Cause
now you can see Novo Nordisk.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So this is just a few examples, and we of course want much more companies to exploit the opportunities in circular economy. In Denmark, the circular economy was introduced more widely as a concept in 2015, when Denmark became this country study in the international toolkit for policymakers made by the Alma Carter Foundation, and that study showed great economic and environmental potential in the circular transition. And the study formed the knowledge base for when the government in 2017 pointed out a panel of business leaders to give recommendations on how we could do a circular transition in Denmark. So that was kind of a public-private partnership on how to move forward, and it formed the base for the national strategy, which was released in 2018, financing concrete initiatives for 4 years on circular economy. And in the Danish Business Authority, we are heading some of these initiatives with a focus on businesses. So we want the business in Denmark to come on board, and we have launched different initiatives. We have launched business support schemes focusing on circular economy, higher value of material use, use of design, recycling, and so forth. We have launched innovation challenges focusing on longer product lifetime of textiles, use of municipality data for circular development, and also regulation can be a barrier for circular business models. So to help companies, we made this one-stop shop. So if they don't know who and how many authorities to address, if they experience a barrier for their business development, they can just write to us and we will coordinate and answer across different authorities. Also, we have been focusing on building up knowledge, doing different reports, how can standards support circular economy, How can companies learn from each other in case studies? And we had a special focus on which kind of data, how can you share data among companies to support circular business models? And that was all part of the national strategy. Now with the new government in Denmark, they have really intensified their focus on the climate agenda with a clear target, and they made partnership with the businesses to come up with concrete input and plans for how to achieve this goal. And this has really raised the bar in Denmark and the focus on the green transition. Of course, the COVID-19 crisis at the moment is of highest priority, but the climate focus is definitely still on the table. And climate mitigation and circular economy goes hand in hand. Ellen MacArthur Foundation showed that last year that there is a great that the climate policy needs to address circular economy if we want to achieve climate goals. And we asked the Swedish Material Economics to do the same kind of analysis for the Nordic region. And the conclusion was actually the same. We do need to address circular economy in the climate policies. What is also very important for the Danish government is responsible companies. And that is why the Danish Business Authority is working on creating transparency on which companies are green and which are not. And that's not an easy task and not something we have solved tomorrow, but we definitely see data and digital tools as important enablers for reporting and documentation. And therefore, as a first step, we are looking into how can we improve comparable and standardized CSR reporting to make it much more valuable to report to investors. We have just launched and updated, or we have started to develop a new user-friendly tool to calculate companies' CO2 emissions. And we're also looking into, at a product level, what is internal best practice for data sharing, and who do we need to collaborate with in order to develop a digital infrastructure for data sharing. This is very much at the agenda at the moment. But I'm very happy to be invited here today to talk about collaboration, because we definitely need collaboration to accelerate the circular transition in the Nordic region. And here are a few suggestions where we could, I think we could focus on the collaboration. The Nordic countries are highly digitized countries. And if we focus on how to use data and digitization as enablers for circular business models, it could be a good place to focus. The circular and the digital transition is, of course, very new for many companies. But if we focus on this, I think we could be a front-runner region and start creating best practice on how this can scale the circular transition. Also, as I mentioned, reporting and documentation could be an important collaboration focus. If we want to enable and attract sustainable investments to the Nordic region, I think it's important also to create a level playing field for circular businesses. This is also why we need standards and Nordic eco-labels like Sven, with the criteria for circularity. Standards and eco-labels create trust and guarantee on the functionality of circular products. Common Nordic challenges addressed by innovation challenges could be a place to collaborate. Align public procurement, as was mentioned earlier, to focus on circular procurement could be a place to look. There are already examples where Nordic cities has aligned their procurement on equipment. So common guidelines and sector focus on Nordic procurement could be a place to look. And as was also mentioned earlier, as individual countries, we definitely lack scale in the market for secondary resources. and it's very difficult to transport secondary resources across borders. But there are examples in the EU on how these barriers could be overcome, and I think we should look at that in a Nordic collaboration as well. These are some of the suggestions from me. Thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to the rest of the seminar. Thank you.
Rigtig mange tak, Markus. Let me ask you before we move on to Norway with Finland at as the last presenter. I want to ask you, when Denmark started the strategy for a circular economy, what was the main reason and the main driver for the Danish government and the Danish industry to decide to go circular?
As mentioned, I think the toolkit report gave the foundation, the Nordiskt Foundation, and initiated a lot of initiatives in the country. And when the government then appointed an advisory board to make a partnership with the businesses and start looking into what do the businesses think is most important to make this transition happen. And then in partnership with the Minister of Business and the Minister of Environment to come up with concrete recommendations on how do we do this the best way. That really started the focus on circular economy. And then, of course, we are only in the beginning of the transition. There's so much to do, and we are embracing the concept, but we are definitely a long way from making the circular economy happen and scale. But I think we are in the beginning because of the recommendations from the advisory board and the national strategy.
And the strategy, which was launched in 2018 with its concrete recommendations, a 4-year strategy, we're now in sort of an unfortunate half-time break there. What are the conclusions thus far? What have you managed to achieve? What have been the biggest problems and the biggest achievements?
I think the biggest achievement is that we have now put circular economy on the agenda in the political system. By having a strategy and a political agreement financing concrete initiatives. A lot of people also in the public administration has to kind of start understand this concept and launch these different initiatives. It has been very important that different ministries are on board. So we are looking at the circular transition from a business point of view, but the Minister of Environment is looking at it from the waste sector, the food sector, and the construction sector is also in focus. So it's really important that we are collaborating and are addressing this very broadly, because we need all sectors to push for this to make it happen.
Thank you once again, Markus, and we look forward to hearing you again in the final discussion, where we also look forward to your questions, which you will put at the Menti site with 441269 as the code to enter. We move forward from Denmark to our Norwegian friends for a Norwegian and Nordic overview with Kristoffer Bach-Vestli, who's the manager at the Nordic Working Group for Circular Economy at the Nordic COP at Miljödirektoratet in Norway. Kristoffer, the floor is yours.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, thank you. You can hear me well?
We hear you well, and we see your
then
presentation
I will,
in just a second.
Yeah. So it should be visible now. Yes?
Absolutely.
Good. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for inviting me to this seminar. Yes, I'm here with two hats. First of all, and as my full job is a senior advisor of the Norwegian Environment Agency, where I'm working on circular economy related issues. And waste management. But I'm also the head of the Nordic Working Group for Circular Economy under the Nordic Council for Ministers. And I will be happy to give you a brief introduction to the Nordic cooperation on circular economy that we started last year. However, I would like to start with a few comments on Norway and what's going on in Norway at the moment. First of all, I think it's proper to say that we haven't had a very wide cross-sectoral strategy for circular economy in Norway. We've had different strategies, sectoral strategies throughout the years. We have a biogas strategy, which of course is a semi-cross-sectoral strategy, creating a pathway for use of biogas and biogas technology infrastructure in Norway. We have a mineral strategy. We have a waste strategy coming from 2013, very important. But now the government is working on a new strategy for circular economy, a much more holistic perspective. And the government has announced that this strategy will be published by the end of 2020. Following up, of course, not only the white paper on circular economy and waste from 2017, but also a lot of the requirements following the European Union circular economy action plans, both from 2018 and the recent one from March. So from the government side, much going on the circular economy side in Norway. It will be interesting to see where these measures will take us during the next 10 to 15 years. But I think here, looking into what's going on in the industry is also very important, as there has been a lot of initiatives in the Norwegian industries during the last years related to circular economy. I'll just mention a few examples before I move on to the Nordic perspective. In the municipalities in Norway, there are different challenges. The cities are different. The population differs very much. Some of them cities are located in the rural areas, some of them more centralized areas. And of course, then the challenges related to moving into a circular economy also varies a lot. I would like to mention some examples related to buses and the transportation of people in Norwegian municipalities. There's many companies today moving away from fossil-based transportation to fossil-free transportation. The city of Oslo is one example, where they in addition have used the power of public procurement to promote recycled plastic in the buses, in addition to using biogas, electricity in the bus systems. And that's also the case in other Norwegian cities, like Trondheim, Bergen, Stavanger, and so on. We also have a very interesting initiative on design of plastics, where not only Norwegian manufacturers, but also international manufacturers have come together and joined a very good initiative on designing plastic packaging for more circularity, in which this network, both manufacturers, designers, recyclers, sorting plants, have come together, joined forces, and found out what is needed to be done at different levels throughout the value chain in order to improve the plastic packaging, making it more recyclable, more circular, and then has done many efforts to provide some types of plastic packaging more circular. We also have companies like Bergans, Stormberg pushing the textile industry a lot. They've done that for many years already. I think in this regard, it's important to follow what comes from the European Union very closely. There's a new textile strategy expected next year. And of course, other elements of the circular economy action plan has to be followed up closely also by Norway. So looking into that roadmap and the roadmaps of the industry in Norway, I think we are moving in the right direction. So that was a few words, very, very brief, on some key examples from Norway. I would like now to switch to more Nordic perspective, in which Norway has the pleasure of chairing the Nordic Working Group of Circular Economy that was established in 2019 under the Nordic Council for Ministers. Well, the Nordic cooperation dates back many years, and the government, the more official government cooperation dates back to 1971. Of course, it has developed throughout the years, and now we have this ambitious vision that we want to become the most sustainable and integrated region in the world by 2030. That's 10 years from now, so a lot has to be done before we come to that stage. Just briefly, there are so many issues that we cooperate on within the Nordic region, and a lot of things we take in for common today. Well, this is a result from Nordic cooperation, also within the climate and environment field, in which circular economy is under. How can we become the most integrated and sustainable region? Well, we have a program for Nordic cooperation on environment and climate, in which circular economy plays a very important role. And circular economy is also one of the most important, what can I say, barricades or issues to find the best solutions for the vision. I will give a few examples on how we work in the Nordic Working Group for Circular Economy and across borders between our governments. Right now, we are looking very much into batteries. And, well, of course, the producer perspective and product perspective, product policies are very important for us, not only for batteries, but for the overall agenda. But looking into the batteries and the battery sector or use of batteries, not only in the Nordics, but in the world, it's an area with a huge potential. Only in Norway, we have moved from 3,000 electrical vehicles 10 years ago to more than 270,000 this year. So it says a lot about the development and that the technology here is moving very, very fast. And there are many challenges related to that, not only when it comes to recycling, but also when it comes to design, use, distribution, and the technology related to the batteries. How can we make that more circular? Because it's a very high demand. There is a high demand for critical raw materials, and we are high consumers, major consumers of such technologies in the Nordics, and we have a responsibility, and that's why we have initiated this big initiative on batteries in the Nordic cooperation now. We also have a very important cooperation related to green public procurements. there's a new network integrating many municipalities throughout the Nordic countries, and looking into zero-emission deliveries of goods in the Nordic municipalities. Only in Norway, public procurement stands for 520 billion krones each year. So here, it's a very important measure to take. And why deliveries of goods? Looking into Copenhagen, every day, 4.5 million kilometers. It's a high number. It's the number of kilometers traveled for the delivery of goods to different shops, retailers in Copenhagen every day. That's 112 times around the globe every day, every single day. And of course, here making that transportation zero emission will be important for climate, but also for new technical solutions and new business models in Nordic cities, which will be important in a European perspective as well. So this network has come quite far. There are between 10 and 15 municipalities cooperating on such procurements right now. And we're eager to see the results from this project and hope to see a big change in many of the Norwegian and Swedish, Finnish, Spanish cities that take part in this project. Lastly, I would like to comment on how to measure the circular economy, because we set some targets in many areas. We want to become most sustainable. We want to achieve this and that. Well, how do you measure a circular economy? This is also something we're looking into. Of course, we know that the European Union have the monitoring framework, and that the European Union are investigating this topic particularly. But we also need to find good solutions for the Nordics and how to measure circularity on the local, regional level in the Nordics. So this is something we're looking into right now, also related to a major project on investigating the development of circular economy and the impact of different sectors in the Nordics. So that will be interesting to see. We will have some results already this year, I think, and some recommendations coming from the working group. And I look forward to present those results to you at a later stage. But as for now, we're investigating this and a lot of other interesting issues, and we will see even more results coming the next years. So I think I will leave it there. My contact information is on the screen. Please feel free to distribute that through the participants, and don't hesitate to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christopher. Before moving on to Marta, I'd like to ask you just one question now and then come back to you at the panel discussion at the end. And I wanted to take up on what you mentioned on public procurement, because a lot of the examples that you had in the beginning from Norway were linked to public authorities, to municipalities, to cities, to regions, and to the state of Norway itself. And I think that public procurement finds it easier to move further when it comes to reducing climate impact, for instance, because there the figures and numbers are quite readily available. So what is the trick to move forward in terms of a better public procurement for a circular, resource-efficient economy? What have the Norwegian municipalities done the best that the rest of us should learn from?
Well, I think this is not only a case from Norway. I think it's related to all the Nordic countries. But I think having a close relation to the markets and getting to know what the markets looks like, what key actors is available on the market, what technology exists at the market. So, I mean, one thing is targets, one thing is setting high demands, but you also need to know how the development goes in the market and what kind of business models is developing, what's the actual and realistic possibilities. I think that's important. But I think that's not exclusively something Norwegian municipalities has been doing. I think we can find many good examples also in the other Nordic countries.
I'm sure you're right, and I love the way you started out by giving us some examples, because we learn a lot from those examples, be it from Norway, from Finland, or from other Nordic countries. We move on. Thank you so much, Christopher. We look forward to hear you soon at the panel discussion at the end. We now move on to Marte Haugland, who's the Senior Innovation Advisor at the Nordic Innovation. Marte, please. We are struggling to hear Marte.
Let me unmute. That's a good
wonderful.
idea.
We hear you well. We needed a moment of reflection there. Thank you.
That's perfect. I'm very happy to be here, and thank you so much for having me. Can you see my screen now?
Not just yet. Oh.
Not just yet.
It is
now?
Yes. Perfect.
Okay. So thank you so much for having me. I just want to say that Nordic Innovation is one of 12 organizations under the Nordic Council of Ministers. We are under the Business and Industry Ministers. We have a budget, annual budget, about 18 million Norwegian kroners per year, and we're located in Oslo, and we have around 21 employees. And we're around 3 to 4 colleagues on circular economy. As Christopher mentioned, the Nordic has a new vision related to becoming the most sustainable and integrated region in the world. And the green and the competitive Nordic region is very interlinked with our Nordic innovation mandate, which is to develop a sustainable development through innovation, entrepreneurship, and value creation. And to do that, we've 3 main programs in Nordic Innovation, and one is Nordic Sustainable Business Transformation. We operate under a program on cooperation and industrial development, business development, that the ministers have set out for us. It's a 4-year program, and this is one of the programs under there. And as you see, we want to challenge industries for a circular future. And what we did when we created this program was to go around in the Nordic countries and trying to figure out what were the main topics within this theme that the national programs were working on, and the businesses were concerned about, and the programs, all the national innovation agencies, what were they doing? And we see that goal number 12 of the SDGs is, of course, a really important part of the circular economy and this program. And our ambitions are to speed up the transitions to circular economy in the Nordics and get to companies, especially, because that's our main target group, to implement circular business models and to develop solutions that can enable this transformation towards a circular economy, and to build stronger Nordic ecosystems within the circular economy. And we want to, bring the Nordic actors together. That's one of our main goals. And to give them tools and competences that they need to continue. We have 4 main action areas, and this is the competence, new solutions, circular cities, and ecosystems. So we kind of divided the program into 4 action areas, and we have different kinds of projects under there. And what we would like to do is to take circular economy from strategy to business, implementing and organizing or getting the companies to really transition to circular economy. And we do this, we have different kinds of projects, and these projects are all kind of recruiting now. So if you want to join any of these projects, you are more than welcome to do so. These are running kind of projects under our program. And we have this circular business models in the Nordic manufacturing industry. And if you look at the screen, you can see kind of 5 main large business models, and within these, you can start working. And there are, of course, a lot of sub-models under these business models. But here you see recover and recycle, but you see sharing platforms, product as a service, and product life extension as well as circular supply chain. The program is a unique collaboration program across the Nordic manufacturing industry. And you can see that we are focusing on 5 sectors that we think are really important and that have a large footprint in the Nordics. You have, of course, the digitalization that we're doing in the AI and the technological development that has been going on the last 5 to 10 years is, of course, a really important driver in the transition to circular economy, because you can do different things than you could before. And how we're running the program is that we are now recruiting companies, and then we will get them to hopefully physical workshops in the fall. If not, we will figure out a way to do it digitally. But here I just wanted to show you also how we're thinking about this transitioning to the circular economy in the Nordic manufacturing industry. Here you see a circular value chain. You see it's different from a linear value chain, and you see it has a lot of other types of actors that you need in order to help you make your value chain circular. But you also see that we have some enabling companies, which are research and development, technology providers, regulatory bodies, of course, but also financial services, which are really important in order to drive the change. That when your balance sheet changes because you have a different business models, your financial service provider needs to understand that and needs to be able to give you the loan or to give you the right valuation of your company when it's circular as opposed to linear and the normal run-up. Then we have, and as I said, recruiting now. Then we also wanted to find new solutions, as well as circular cities. Cities are such an important drivers for circular change. So many people live in the cities, they have a huge part of the waste and a huge part of the material use. And if you can get some new solutions in the cities, a lot of the circular economy can change. So we had this call for proposal. It's a small budget. Nordic Innovation only kickstarts development and collaboration. So we don't go all the way. But we have 17 applications, which we are now evaluating, and they are within 2 topics: public-private collaboration in Nordic cities as front runners in circularity, and use circular innovation products and services and processes. And it's very interesting to see the ideas that different actors have come up with. And we look forward to evaluating and to launch some of these projects in the summer. Then we have another project which can help you get your find the right business model for you and pilot it with you. The people you see here are the team in Loop. And from the Swedish side, there's Antrop. Denmark, it's Art Rebels. In Norway, it's Agens and Startup Norway. And in Finland, it's Avanto Ventures. And they can help you actually pilot your idea. Or if you don't have an idea, they can even help you get up with an idea. They will try to match you with innovative startups where you can get new ideas into your company and how you can get it. And as you saw on that circular value chain, you need other actors in order to make your business circular. So Loop is a Nordic ecosystem, and it gets companies together in a meaningful way, also taking strategy to action and to business. So I hope that some of you will join Loop. Let's see, next slide here. Now my screen is stuck. I don't know if you have changed my slides. Could you see it?
The slide has not changed as yet. We're still with Loop.
Okay. So that's I'm gonna try to. No, it doesn't work. Okay, so my whole screen has froze. Sorry about that. But I wanted to tell you also about the Nordic Circular Hotspot, which is an effort to try to map all circular economy partners or people working on circular economy and their interests in the Nordics. And they have around, I think, 250 or 300 different people who's responding to that now. And they are trying to gather all the knowledge and all the information in order to make it easier for people to find other people working on the same, or to try to on to find project ideas, or to find information, the latest information about different kinds of products. So that was what I was supposed to say, I think.
Thank you so much, Marte, and I'm actually a bit glad that we have your frozen screen with Loop, because I think a lot of us really wanna, and myself included, wanna approach Loop to get more ideas about how to become circular. We're gonna come back to you, Marte, and we're gonna ask you also to actually close down Teams on your computer, which I believe, or the technical staff here believes, has caused the problems. I don't know how you managed to shut it down if your computer is stuck, but give it a try. And meanwhile, we'll move on. We will move on to Jyri from Finland, Jyri Arponen, who's the senior lead at the business development for circular economy at Sitra, which is the Finnish Innovation Fund. Jyri, are you with us? If need be,
yes, I'm with you.
Good. The screen is yours. We want to see
you
big on the screen, and we want to hear you loud and clear.
Very good. All right. So why I wanted to put this, because we are actually in urgency. There are a lot of companies and players throughout the world that's saying that the circular economy is scaling up. And they are embedding that circularity in all processes and business function. What does it mean is that actually it's not anymore only about the resource efficiency or closing the loops or industrial symbiosis or industrial ecology. With the digitalization, I think that within the last years, the change has fastening, and it's about the decoupling the value creation from consumption of raw materials and energy with this business model. Actually, Martha mentioned those, and mainly you do this with life cycle extension services, different type of that you can create, analyzing, optimizing, and also providing services to the existing products. and also this like product as a platform and product as a service and service platforms. So this is something that should be really taken seriously, and that's why it's not kind of enough to have projects. We have to also change the system, and now we can have the second slide. Deep.
Yes.
And that's why we started this work in 2014 to figure out what are the main things what will take place in the next decades, and then we decided or found out that this is the circular economy. And we did the study for Finland with the McKinsey, and then we went forward with MacArthur Foundation and all the other players like World Economic Forum. And once we found that this is really eligible for Finland and for the world, we did the roadmap for Finland in order to engage all the players. And then we also created this forum, World Economic Forum, and next one will take place actually in Canada in spring. So and there has been a lot of changes because of this epidemic time, and now I think that where we're heading more and more, of course, we are very much on the Nordic cooperation, especially with the Nordic innovation, and actually, for example, I was figuring out who I was working with, but IVA, of course, Nordic Innovation Festa in Iceland, and Danish Design Center, for example. So they are very active on these issues. But yes, we have to have them take the next steps very soon in all countries and really engage all the players. So, and it's very essential also that you have proven not only projects, but also the examples and case studies to show, for example, company studies and such. So that's why we have also these sort of examples on our website. But okay, let's go further. And yes, Sitra is a Finnish innovation fund, and our main focus is circular economy, data economy, and foresight and megatrends. So this is something that we wanted to take further. Now we have a roadmap 2.0 in Finland, where we try to engage all the players, do the job or these projects, and instead of Sitra, it's not our idea to run the projects. We want to change the whole society. And this is why we started also with our new government strategic program development, and throughout this year we will prepare and submit the program for our government, and it will set the objectives and indicators to specify measures and to be taking starting next year. And of course ongoing is this roadmap still, but in this way this will be in all our strategic decisions, will also concern about the climate actions and circularity. And next one. So I'm just running through and giving you the what is the present situation. And of course this is a situation in throughout the world, but it's not just that it's totally closed as it says here. In many cases, its business is still going on, and it's actually in standby situation. For example, in manufacturing industries, the companies cannot go on the sites, and they are waiting for the spare parts and components. But this also brings you the need for the Nordic manufacturing industries to go figure out what is the best, because you have to secure the delivery and the suppliers to your businesses. So I think this will be a major thing also to change the way of getting suppliers, and the suppliers platform will be merged more and more to be digital as well. But this also brings out the issue that sustainability and climate action and also responsible behavior, there is a huge demand and this will fasten the change to the wiser world. That's what we believe, at least. Okay, let's go further. Beep. And if you think about the megatrends, you can find them actually on Citra's site, and you can order to yourself the megatrend cards. But these are the trends for the new 20s. And of course, you can see the relational power and population aging, and the economy is seeking direction. And the one thing is also that for many cases, the answer for more sustainable economy is the circular economy, and also there is a lot of thinking globally about capitalism, how it's going to be changed towards more responsible way to be handled. But the one thing is this: the main biggest trend is there are not so much changes, but the biggest one is this ecological reconstruction, and there is an urgency. So this I'm always saying that either we have the sustainable future or road to hell, and this is the decade to make the decisions. And this is really a matter of urgency. And I've been actually last year around the world, and I believe that even from Africa to South America and Asia, this is really now becoming, because you cannot live and consume anymore the way you are doing. First thing what we have to stop is the Black Mondays, but let's take the next one. So and I think this is something that everybody should read, and because you really found cases and politics and everything, and the biggest issues for this year is also beyond the of course the pandemic epidemic. The one thing what is coming up here is also biodiversity. So this is something new also, that it's coming more and more important, the biodiversity. And that's something also that Citra will start and to engage all the players to go towards that as well, engaging that to the climate action, circular economy, and biodiversity. Next one. Yeah, and this is still true. These are actually, when you think about the businesses, the sustainability, of course, but now, like you said, the customer centricity. Now, everything what you do to yourself, you can create services to your customer, and you can find these new unexploited engagement. Sorry, let's go further. But customer centricity is the main issue here, how you create value to your customer. And this is actually, when you think about the digitalization, you can start to figure out, because you don't produce anymore so much when you are decoupling the value creation from the raw materials and energy, new energy consumption, towards value creation with the client, and this is really the big issue. Okay, and yes, we have a new president. I don't know if you know, Jyrki Katainen, and also this, actually what we've been waiting for is this Green Deal, because it has also the circular economy, the climate action, but also the industrial policy. And it's all integrated and embedded here in the Green Deal. So that's why we are following that very closely. And it gives a very good frame to the actions that we will fasten in Finland. And I hope that, of course, in Nordic as well, like we heard. But I think it's much better than the earlier package of circular economy, which was a lot like a waste package, but this goes beyond that, towards also changing the economy, how it's functioning. All right, next one. I have very many slides here, so this is coming through more and more. But we really have to focus also, not just looking for the processes, materials, and because I think that's a must. But what is more important, in order to make this happen, you have to make the way the companies are the company culture, and how you can change the mindset within the company to go beyond the linear, go to circular, and not thinking about the new products, but what you have already produced and how you can create value with existing products and services. And next one, Peep. Something happening there. Too much information. It cannot handle this all.
Yuri, for time reasons, we're going to ask you to wrap up, unfortunately. What, the sort of main conclusion from your presentation is what?
Okay, so there are. Okay, I would have wanted to show you the. Sorry, I had too many slides, of course, but about this, that the industrial change and changing the business models. I think that's the key. Also, the key. You cannot only change the way you are handling your processes and materials if you don't start to figure out what is that you actually do and what you are actually offering. So we have created a playbook for companies to change their businesses and business models towards this 5, which was mentioned earlier. And we have been closely working also with the Nordic innovation, and there will be also launched, I think, in Nordic innovation, a version of the playbook that it's more Nordic examples and needs. Now the latest, we will now come out in May with a circular business model for chemical industry, and that's actually a very much European, and it's a very good approach. So I will tell you later on that. But there are a lot of, I might say that there are unlimited number of local and global circular economy actions and projects in all levels by various actors, so you cannot handle and have all in the same platform because they are in different level. But at least what we could do is to have some sort of sharpen and have the spearheads of those issues that are most important, and then drive them in the Nordics and in Europe and in the globally. So thank you very much, and sorry for that. I had too many slides as usual, but and remember that the circular engagement maximize customer value, attracts investors, and create sense of purpose. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yuri. Kiitos. I'm going to come back to you in just a while with questions exactly about that customer relation that I'm so glad that was finally brought up in this presentation. We're going to move on to the final presentation of this morning, and we're glad that you always leave us wanting more, Yuri and the others, with more presentations and more slides that we didn't get to see this time. That just means that this is a subject that we need to come back to. Final presentation is the way it should be. It's about money. How do we finance circular economy, resource efficiency, and all these Nordic initiatives and the Nordic ambition to be the leading region? I give the floor to Johan Henningsson, who's the Sustainability Manager for Svensk Exportkredit, the Swedish Export Credit Corporation. Johan, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Let's see.
Yes.
It works? Yes, thank you so much for having me here. My name is Johan Henningsson, and I am head of sustainability at SEK, the Swedish Export Credit Corporation. And I will basically talk about, or I should talk, my plan was to talk mostly about export finance, and I will do that. But I will also touch a little bit about finance more generally, and financial issues, because there are a lot of things happening in the financing area when it comes to sustainability. And as Nib couldn't join us today, I would try to cover that sort of area a little bit broader than I originally thought. So I will represent SEK and EKN, which is the Swedish Export Credit System. today. I'm also being part of the finance reference group in this synthesis report on resource efficiency and circular economy. And I just want to stress, if I sort of take on the export hat, the great importance of all these things we do in the Nordic regions and in Sweden when it comes to transforming our economies to a circular economy and to a green economy, because that will be the platform for the next export success. And that we see very, very clearly. And that is something that the government sees as well. In the latest export and innovation strategy, which was launched in December 2019, just a few months ago. This was highly recognized, and the Swedish export credit system, EKN and SEK, was actually given a new mission to look over how we can actually align our financing with the Paris Agreement. So we have just sort of put up a joint working group actually to look into that. And while doing that, we also cooperate and we talk with our neighbor countries about how they do. And this is very sort of important to understand that we have export credit system in Sweden, but we have that in Denmark, in Finland, and in Norway as well. And we normally cooperate, and that's why I have put financing Swedish and Nordic in brackets, exports of environmental know-how, because we have so much in common. And I think we could, we can cooperate a lot more when it comes to export finance. We do that because that is a natural thing to do, because most time we jointly sort of deliver Nordic solutions for international projects, and then we cooperate. But we can do that on a more active way, I think. So when it comes to sort of the importance of building up the sort of a green infrastructure and the green value chains and pilot projects in Sweden to make projects to make export possible, it is also important to actually do these projects abroad, because that is also a way of sort of innovation and to give small and medium-sized corporation the opportunity to actually join larger sort of international projects. Before I move on, I will just mention a few words about what is happening on the financing side more generally, especially in Europe, because there are many things sort of going on. In the Paris Agreement in 2015, there were three main goals, and to actually align or to shift capital flows was one of the main goals. That is very important to understand, because there is a huge agenda building up now, especially in Europe. So we have an action plan on sustainable finance, which sort of is now set in actions. And we have EU taxonomy on what is a green economic activity. And those economic activities that we're looking at are 6 environmental objectives. And we have only fulfilled 2 of them, and that is climate mitigation and climate adaptation. The circular economy will be next. So we will have an entire taxonomy sort of to actually identify what financial actors should sort of finance to become green. So I move on. I just want to give you a little sort of idea of what the export credit system is doing from Sweden. And basically it's the same in other Nordic countries, except from that in the other Nordic countries there are only EKN, which is a state agency which guarantees loans abroad for sort of international projects for buying Swedish or Nordic solutions. SEK, where I come from, we are the funding arm, which we're a state-owned company. I will come back to that. And we're a funding arm. So together, SEK and EKN is sort of composing an attractive financing opportunity for international clients. And what is so attractive by that? Well, for one thing, the attractiveness is that we provide long-term funding, and we also provide funding at attractive levels because Sweden has a very high credit ratings, and that is not possible for other countries actually to get that type of financing. But it's also attractive because we could finance an entire project if only 30% comes from Sweden or originate from Sweden. And now we have said that we could go down to even 20% when it comes to environmental international projects. So here I think this is an area of cooperation, perhaps, I don't know, going forward, that we can look at that sort of from a Nordic perspective instead, and not only from a Swedish perspective. So just a few words about SEK, Swedish Export Credit Corporation. We are a 100% state-owned credit institution, really. So the state has a limited responsibility for SEK. But even so, we have a very high credit rating of AA+, and that allows us to actually fund us in the international capital markets at very good levels. We have the mission to finance Swedish export industry in commercial and sustainable terms, and we have worked with sustainable terms for many, many years, and we have an ambition to grow our green finance part. So SEK, we could both be a part of the export credit system together with EKN and fund international projects, but we can also fund the export industry in Sweden, which we do. That is half of our business. So we provide the Swedish export industry with financing. We are 240 employees in Stockholm and in Gothenburg. So if we look at where we are, sort of where our lending is, that is basically in 70 countries in the world. And EKN is sort of a joint financing partner here, of course. So it's all over the world. And what we see now is that the demand for Swedish environmental solutions are increasing. We see that in railways, where we cooperate with Denmark. We see that in waste to energy, where we also could cooperate with Denmark, in wind and in water sort of projects. Originally, with pulp and paper, we cooperated a lot with Finnvera in Finland. So there are a lot of sort of cooperation already going on. If you look at EKN, they have guarantees in perhaps 130 countries. So they have even more. Then I would like to tell you a little bit about Team Sweden. And that could be, and I'm just speculating, maybe Team Nordic going forward. Because Sweden is a little bit too small to sort of deliver on all these sustainability kind of knowledge that we have. So we need to sort of cooperate to bring a good export proposition internationally. So, but if we start with Team Sweden, we have sort of teamed up 3 different actors, and that is Business Sweden, EKN, SEK, and Swedfund. So the Swedish model works in this way, that we have 4 different phases, and the first one is the project qualification. So there Business Sweden have a very, very important role in mapping highly important sort of international projects where we should focus. And then SEK and EKN comes forward with the financing sort of offering, which is a very important part of sort of the sales pitch. And then we come into the financing, and third part is actually feasibility and ISAIA study, a very important part where Swedfund is funding parts of a feasibility study, because we recognize that when Swedish and Nordic solutions should qualify in international projects, often we are a little bit more expensive because of higher quality. And therefore, the ISAIA study and the feasibility study is very important to highlight actually the environmental sort of opportunity in sort of taking on the Swedish or the Nordic solutions on board. And after we have done a feasibility study, we have Business Sweden going in and searching for Swedish supply network, actually, who can deliver on this project. And here we could also be a lot more sort of having a Nordic perspective. We have just started with this. We have worked in maybe 1 or 2 years. And I think going forward, we need to move faster to cooperate on the Nordic basis. Just a picture from the synthesis report on the financial side. It's in Swedish. I just put it in just to sort of highlight that financing is quite sort of it's quite sort of a complicated system. There are different phases which needs different types of financing. Very important to understand that. And we also have state support in different types during this period. And we all know about this, you see in the later part, the death value, where you need to commercially scale innovation. It's very important because then it needs to be bankable. So what is happening now in EU Action Plan on Sustainable Financing, that will help, and that will make sort of, I think in the end, that will change the capital regulation in Europe, and that will make sort of it easier to actually get bank financing in sustainable projects. But still, all these projects need to be actually bankable, because otherwise they will not receive any bank capital. So to expand, you need the bank to come in, and that goes for both the Nordic Investment Bank, commercial banks, and SEK. Then we have what we don't see in this graph. We have the last graph, and that is to sort of expand internationally. And then you need the export financing, but you also need to have sort of a spare sort of capital on commercial basis to actually take to work with that. Yep, 1 minute left. I will go on. Just a few examples what we have done on the Nordics. We have biopower, Biokraft in Norway, which we financed. It's Purak, a Swedish company that actually constructed that. We have another one, ABB North Sea Link between Norway and England, sort of to take advantage of renewable energy when the wind farm works in England. Norway could take advantage of that, and when it's not windy, England could, instead of sort of using fossil fuel, they could actually use the hydropower in Norway. Lastly, there's a lot of things going on in the green loans area, and there is a interest rate advantage very often involved. I know the Nordic Investment Bank, they do have green loans. SEK has green loans, and all the banks are having green loans. So this is a way of also sort of finding ways of cooperating to actually move on and find green loan sort of in not only for the Swedish export industry as we work today, or for green infrastructure projects in Sweden, but also on a Nordic basis. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Johan. Very often at conferences like this, one is left wondering, where is the money? This time we're not, because we were clearly shown that there is money out there, that there is interest from the financial sector. And Johan, I wanted to take you up just before opening up for all of us to come back with brief questions and answers. I want us to start with you, Johan, because you said that you were speculating in that there's going to be more of a joint Nordic economic effort to finance these examples that we've been seeing. Is this on its way to happen, or were you just purely speculating? What's going to happen?
No, I think that there is so much things going on in the financing area. Both when it comes to new regulations. So we will sort of we need to learn that on an EU basis. And we also have started to cooperate a lot more between actors and agencies in Sweden. But we also have, and we also know that we need to actually align the financial offerings on a Nordic basis. So that is something that we are aware of. But when I say speculating, it's more like a lack of time, and we just need to take that step at the same time, I think. So it's not speculating if, it's more speculating when we will do that.
Great, thank you for that. We'll make sure you keep us posted on how that is moving forward. I would invite us all for a final, very brief round of questions and answers, given that we're well into overtime, but given the technical difficulties we'd had at the beginning, we'll allow ourselves to answer at least some of the questions that came through the Menti, with questions from actually all around the Nordic countries, from institutions, companies, students, individuals. I'd love to start with you, Marcus, in Denmark, where we had several questions about SMEs, these small and medium-sized companies, and not least how they can use public procurement to become more circular. We know that many small companies often find that to be a major hindrance, how to actually compete in public procurement. What is the answer for small-sized companies here? Marcus?
Yeah, we are looking into that in ways to make public procurement also support small companies. Whether it should be smaller tenders, and also actually to see if we could put in criteria for circular economy in the tendering. But of course, it is not something we have the complete solutions to, but it's something we are trying to look into, how we could both support circular projects, but also the smaller companies. We do have actually in the Danish regulation a regulation saying that you need to explain why you have not thought about smaller companies in your choice of offer. But it's not. You're not. There's no demand that you need to also do that.
Thank you for that. Make sure that you keep us posted on development for small and medium-sized enterprises in the Danish strategy. Christopher, in Norway, let me move to you, because we had several questions on the measurements of circular economy. One more in general, who is this mainly for? Is it for companies or for cities or products? Another, again, linked to small companies. How can companies measure the level of circular economy that they are doing?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's a very good question, and I think we can develop indicator sets for different levels, not only for governments. Right now, we're looking into measurements, how to measure how the economy, or how, let's say, Norway is, or the Nordics is moving, let's say, in terms of you can use recycling rates, you can use the use of secondary raw materials as indicators, but you can also do this in very, very small scale in business level, measuring how a medium-sized business is moving into a circular economy when it comes to the use of materials, energy, when it comes to waste reduction, when it comes to what types of products that are used, whether or not those products are eco-labeled or whatever. I mean, there's a range of indicators, and what we're investigating now is which indicator is available, which is easy to use, which of them can tell us a lot about the actual development in the circular economy, and what could be the barriers in such measurements. But it's a very complicated issue, and I think we need to work together to find good indicators, because if we develop indicators ourselves and do not cooperate across the borders, we will have non-comparable data. I think it's important to compare the different developments, not only on the business levels, but also when it comes to country. And that's something the European Union is also very aware of at this moment. So I think we will have lots to contribute with, although there is a long way to go when it comes to the measuring at the business level.
Thank
But
you,
it's a very good
Christopher.
question. I'm happy that someone raised that question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Speaking of cooperation, I want to move on to you, Marte, because a lot of your presentation was about how we can cooperate better in the Nordic perspective, and that provoked questions about the time we're in, the corona era, of course, meaning that we're shut down and isolated from each other, but even without corona, we're in a world with more of populism and more of closed borders and perhaps less cooperation. What is the real prospect here for us to cooperate more in terms of developing a circular, resource-efficient economy?
Well, I think that the Nordic cooperation has gained traction in the last years, perhaps not in the corona, the very new situation now, but before that with Brexit, with Trump and with the trade war between the US and China. I think that many companies and many other actors look to the Nordics for cooperation because we are quite similar and we have quite of the same challenges also within the circular economy, because our economies are quite equal if you compare it to other economies. So in that sense, I think that the Nordic cooperation and that many companies also are eager to cooperate more with Nordic counterparts because maybe it feels more secure. And of course, now with the new coronavirus, we all find new ways of cooperating like this webinar. And I think that it's more difficult to start a new company cooperation on the web, but perhaps we will just have to manage that. And hopefully we can meet up in person soon, but we will also see that there are other forms of cooperating that we can take advantage of in this very difficult times.
Thank you, Marte. Yuri, you were the one mentioning customers. The rest of us mainly focused on the global targets that we have to achieve and the national strategies, but you zoomed in on me as a person and as a customer, and I would like for you to develop on that. What is in it for the average Nordic citizen and customer when it comes to moving fast forward to a circular, resource-efficient economy?
Yeah, I think that what is really happening, I don't know if it's these times people have started to figure out how they consume, and of course this sort of products that are designed for long life and recyclable. So that's something that has happened. But I'm expecting more value for your company, and of course. It was mentioned that public procurement, for example, is a huge sort of problem, but many times it's about market price and standardized quality and secure delivery, which is a problem with many smaller ones. So I think that the sort of new platforms and alliances and joint ventures can come to the help. But of course, this I think it's more like a culture in the companies that go closer, that companies are coming closer to the customer. And I think that within this year and within 1 year, a lot of changes in the behavior. You didn't see 2 or 1 years ago that CO2 neutrality is the main argument for selling products. But now it is actually, if you look at at least advertisement in Finland. So and of course this and I think that on both sides, both in customers and consumers, but also in the client, there's been a lot of changes and sort of more collaboration and more towards the client, but the more quality and more meaningful products instead of mass consuming.
Thank you, Yuri. Johan, I want to move to you lastly before I want to ask all of you for your final advice on how to move forward. Johan, we are hopefully about to soon sort of reinvigorate or kickstart the economies again. What are the prospects of us doing that as countries in a much more sustainable, circular, resource-efficient way?
I think that Corona, as tragic as it is, the coronavirus has learned we have learned a lot. We see that we could actually cooperate. We could sort of have a global agenda, and we also learn that will we need a lot of funding. We need a lot of money to make a global agenda work. And the next sort of big challenge that we have will be to transform into a climate neutral economy. And I think we have already started actually to discuss within the financing community that we will need the same type of sort of funding going forward. So when we should kickstart the economy, we could as well do that and at the same time create sort of a climate neutral economy. So I think there will be a lot of talk about how we can kickstart the economy and sort of take the climate into account.
Thank you, Johan. And now as a final question with just a sentence or two from each of you. So this synthesis report and this conference that we're having is a wonderful starting point of more concrete action towards a circular and resource-efficient economy. What would be the main top-of-mind thing to do now that the synthesis report has been launched? Starting with you, Marcus, and then Christopher. Marcus? I see a big smile on your face, Marcus, but I want to hear your comments as well. We can't hear Marcus very well. Christopher, your thoughts, please, and then Marte.
Yes, thank you. Well, I think I would like to stress the importance of strong Nordic cooperation between not only on the government level, but also at the business level. So we're a big region, and we have a lot of potential within different sectors, and we need to take advantage of that position, not only when it comes to economy, but also in many, many other fields. I think the potential is enormous and very important to take advantage of.
Thank you. Marte, and then another chance with Marcus.
Yes, I think I just want to echo what Christopher said, and that we need more Nordic cooperation, but also that we can just start somewhere with your transformation. Team up with somebody and look for either projects to join or just look at your own company or organizations and see what could you do better. What are the inefficiencies that you could try to mitigate with circular economy, and ask for help.
Thank you. Marcus, and then Yuri.
Yeah, I found my mute button. I think that one of the things we need to focus on is creating knowledge. I think there's a lot of will, but there's a lot of lack of knowledge at all levels of both in companies and in the public sector. So we need to focus on that to understand the concepts and the opportunities.
Thank you, Marcus. Yuri, and then Johan.
Okay, I think that in order to do this transformation together, we need common targets and cultural change and behavior, mindset, and values, and we really have to go for them. But I think that the Nordic cooperation, Nordics is our most important economic area, so we really have to start function and do cooperation with more, and thinking about the value we are creating, not just circulating materials.
Thank you, and finally among the speakers, Johan.
Thank you. I think we need to, on the Nordic sort of cooperation side, we need to think through all the different financial vehicles we do have, and not only sort of to cooperate within countries, but also to cooperate between countries, because we do these in various ways, and there are advantages and disadvantages in all systems, and we need to sort of start that discussion. I also think that measurement would be very, very important for the financial market to be able actually to understand what those different business models actually contribute with. and how the financial actor in turn could use that and sort of promote either sort of sustainable funds or sustainable loans, or make them into green and sustainable financial products. That would be very, very important. Also think that the sort of the public procurement will have a central role. If we could sort of do that in the same manner in the Nordic, and also sort of to do that quite fast, that will make a great contribution.
Thank you so much, Johan, and thank you all of the participants for your presentations and for your interventions. So we have actually several more questions for you that were put in the Menti, but some of them were very specific, and we encourage those who put the questions to get in touch directly with the individual speakers. And we thank you on beforehand to the speakers for giving the answers to those who did not manage to get their questions put to all of us in this seminar, which is well into overtime now, because this was a wide-reaching and super interesting subject that we need to move forward on. I turn now to you finally, Caroline, for your thoughts on what is the most important thing to do now.
I just want to say first, super big thank you to all the speakers, because this was so interesting, and you put so much input, gave so much input to us, and so much energy to the question, and we just love to take it all in and take it forward. And IVA as a platform between business, academia, and politics, I think is a great place to keep these issues and try to work them forward. So just huge thank you.
And the synthesis report is now launched. It's to be found on your website. This conference, if you want to go through all the slides, is also going to be there. And a lot of us have already sort of started the movements towards a more circular economy. There's already spin-off groups working with plastics, I believe, for instance. What are your next steps at IVA to promote a more circular and resource-efficient economy?
Well, what I'm hoping for is for IVA to start a think and do tank around these issues, because projects have a start and an end, but I think this needs to have a continuous support and focus. So fingers crossed.
I love that. I used to head a think tank myself. Thinking is nice, but it's not enough. We need to do as well. And I love the way that this seminar has been about how we systematize and use the best examples from around the Nordic, how we cooperate better, how we just start not just thinking, but also doing, and how this synthesis report that you presented gives us a wonderful platform for that. Thank you very much, all of you, for this morning, and especially to IVA, thank you for hosting and organizing this.
Thank you, Mattias.
And bye-bye.